Thumbs up.
I'll just let it trip over that thing.
As long as there's a trip and not a paint.
That's it. Oh, I can do that too.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cushing.
Good afternoon.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, it will.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. Could you identify yourself, please?
Thomas Cushing, the permit section chief for MassDEP in Lakeville.
Have you submitted pre-filed testimony and rebuttal testimony in this matter
Yes, I have.
on behalf of the department?
Yes, sir, I have.
All right, you have that with you?
Yes, I do.
Have you signed that testimony under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I have.
Do you wish to make any corrections to that testimony?
Yes, sir, I do. In my rebuttal testimony, starting on paragraph 6, I incorrectly identified resource report number 9 as having been prepared by the EPA. It was in fact prepared by the FERC, and EPA was a cooperating agency. And this follows through with the reference to EPA in paragraphs 7 and 8. It should be the FERC.
So how would you specifically, or are you changing that? You're changing, instead of the EPA, it will just say the firm?
So in paragraph 7 and 8, it will say the FERC. In paragraph 6, it will say, which was prepared by the FERC with the EPA as a cooperating agency. An additional correction is on paragraph 15. I identified air pollution control cost manual, not the 6th edition. I believe it should be the 7th edition, and I can no longer rely on that web link that's down below. The 7th edition is what was made, yes, I believe it was the SCR document that was made available the other day.
Can I ask, is there a different date than the 7th edition?
I don't have a copy of that department.
Any other changes, Mr. Cushing?
No, sir.
Do you adopt, having made those corrections, do you now adopt your pre-filed and rebuttal testimony for purposes of this hearing?
Yes.
Mr. Cushing is available for cross-examination.
Thank you. Madam Presiding Officer, thank you. Mr. Cushing, thank you on behalf of the town of Weymouth for making yourself available at this late hour. Certainly appreciate the things to do and other matters on your plate, so we certainly appreciate your participation. My name is Raymond Miyares. I'm representing the town of Weymouth in this proceeding. If we could begin by looking at your pre-filed direct testimony, and specifically paragraph 24.
And
Do you see it there? You make reference there to MassDEP's air toxics implementation update dated August 1989. See that?
yes, I do.
Is that the same document that others have testified to as the basis for what they call the long-standing practice of not including background levels of toxic materials in the modeling for toxic air emissions?
That is a document.
Okay. And that document says it's an update. And others have testified that that's the earliest document that they know about. Do you know about an earlier document?
I do not know of an earlier document.
Now, if you could go to paragraph 26. There you state that the ambient impacts of all air toxics are below the AAL and TEL guideline value. You see that?
I see that statement.
And is the conclusion that you intend to convey there that since they are below the values, then the air plan is eligible for approval?
That is one of many issues that we evaluate in issuing air plan approval, so it would not be the sole determinant.
That's the reason I used the word eligible. So with respect to ALs and TEL guidelines, if you see the value to be satisfied, then you are satisfied, is that correct?
On that aspect, yes.
Okay. And if you see an exceedance of an AL or TEL guideline value, what steps does the department then take?
Policy requires we take further evaluation.
Okay. And what is the nature of that further evaluation?
In all my years of experience, I have never encountered that. I have not done further evaluation.
Okay. All right. Now if we could look at your rebuttal testimony. And let's go to paragraph 7. And 8, where you recently made a correction.
Yep.
Okay. Does it matter to your testimony whether MassDEP is deferring to FERC or to EPA?
No.
So is it your testimony that that a statement that is made by FERC carries the same weight in your decision making than a statement that's made by EPA?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware that that the FERC process specifically does not result in an air plan approval for this facility?
I am aware.
And so FERC doesn't make judgments about whether the facility qualifies for an air plan approval, is that correct?
My understanding is they do not make that determination.
Okay, but you nevertheless defer to them equally as to EPA, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, now if we could go back to paragraph 6. Others, yes. Okay, at the end of that paragraph, you reproduce 3 paragraphs from the FERC environmental assessment that you say that MassDEP relied on when considering electric compression for the Weymouth compressor station. Is that correct?
Yes.
When you say you relied on that at the beginning of the second sentence in that paragraph, what do you mean?
So in the second sentence, starting with "in doing so," is that where?
No, actually, yes, in doing so, there it is.
Okay.
Yes.
So the context of this is, whether we have the latitude to redefine the project. So I looked at a different regulatory agency's determination that redefining the project was not appropriate for their purposes. So therefore, I did not feel it was appropriate to try to redefine the project within the back process.
Okay, so when you decided to rely on the environmental assessment, did you first conduct a review to determine whether you agree with the statements that are made in the environmental assessment?
I read through it, yes.
Now, did you make a determination that you agree with it?
I did not make any determination.
So you merely decided to follow along with whatever FERC stated, is that right?
I relied on their assessment.
Okay. So the environmental assessment, as you quoted here, states that currently there is not enough electric transmission infrastructure in place to accommodate the additional power supply. You see that?
Can you specify the paragraph for that, please?
Looking for it. Second paragraph, first sentence. Second half of the first sentence. There is not enough electric transmission infrastructure in place to accommodate the additional power supply. See that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Did you take any steps to verify this assertion?
No, FERC has the resources to do that verification. I do not.
Okay, so, the first half of that sentence, the installation of an electric-driven compressor unit would require additional facilities to be constructed. Is it fair to say you didn't take any steps to verify that either?
To make a specific determination, no.
All right, the next sentence, it says, the construction and operation of electric-driven units would increase the environmental impacts of the project. Do you see that?
No, can you point me to it, please,
The
again?
next sentence after the one we were just talking about.
Okay.
Begins for each station.
Okay, yes, I see it.
And then it says the construction and operation of electric-driven units would increase the environmental impacts of the project. Do you see that?
Yes,
And then it says, including increasing the amount of land disturbed and creating new permanent visual impacts.
correct, I see that.
Are you aware of any other impacts besides those two that are mentioned in the environmental assessment?
There's nothing, I do not see anything stated here.
Okay. So in the third paragraph there's a reference to table 3.3.2-1. See that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. That, you may recall that table is reproduced in Welsh rebuttal testimony. Do you recall
I
that?
do not recall the table specifically, I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. Get you one. Page 6. Do you have a copy of the Welsh text?
I have a copy of William Wilson's.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Oh, excellent. All right, if you look at page 6,
I am there.
at the top, by a happy coincidence, there is a table there that is numbered 3.3.2-1. You see that?
Yes, I do.
Um, So the only environmental impact mentioned in this table appears to be additional land area that would be affected by construction. Is that correct?
Appears so.
So what steps did you take to balance the environmental impacts that you were aware of against the air pollution benefits of an electric motor drive?
I had some discussions with Algama. I did not feel it was appropriate to redefine the project, so there was not a lot of discussion on that.
Well, I'm trying to understand why you decided it was not appropriate to redefine the project. And I'm wondering if, in the course of doing that, you balanced the air pollution benefits that would have been derived from using an electric motor drive against the other environmental impacts that we identified here.
I did not have further discussion on that, no.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question so I can make sure I answer accurately?
Could you read it back, please?
I'm trying to understand why you decided it was not appropriate to redefine the project, and I'm wondering if in the course of doing that, you balanced the air pollution benefits that would have been derived from using electric motor drive against the other environmental impacts that we identified here.
So it's a compound question. So I did rely on the FRRACS assessment, and there were discussions about air emissions associated with it. It was understood that this would reduce air emissions, but it was thought it was redefining the project, so there was no further action on that.
Okay, and is your balancing analysis reproduced anywhere in the record here?
I am not aware of a location.
Does it exist in writing?
I am not aware of a location.
Okay, but that doesn't really answer the question whether it exists in writing.
I do not know if it exists in writing.
Okay, if you go back to the three quoted paragraphs from the environmental assessment, which are reproduced in your rebuttal testimony, paragraph 6. We go to the third paragraph here. The second sentence says, installation of electric-driven compressors would limit Algonquin's ability to satisfy the project's schedule due to the time needed to permit, design, and construct those non-jurisdictional facilities. You see that?
Yes, I do.
And did you take any steps to verify that assertion?
Timeliness is a decision made by the FERC. I did not research that.
Okay. So when you prepared your testimony, how long did you conclude that it would take to permit and construct a facility?
I did not make a conclusion.
Okay. So calling your attention to table 3.3.2-1 again. Okay. You see where it says 18 to 36 months?
Yes, I do.
If we measure from May 2nd, 2016, which is when the environmental assessment was submitted to the FERC docket, when would 36 months expire?
So you're asking me so repeat, what's the date, starting date?
May 2nd, 2016.
It'll be 3 years later.
So May 2nd, 2019.
Approximately May 2nd, 2019.
So 2 weeks ago? Thank you. All right, going back to the environmental assessment. Okay, the very last sentence. In consideration of all these factors, we conclude that use of electric-driven compressor units would not be preferable to or offer a significant environmental advantage over the proposed project facilities. You see that?
Yes, I do.
So with respect to the question of offering a significant environmental advantage over the proposed project facilities, do you agree that in considering the airplane's application, you're free to consider any type of environmental impact that may be associated with the project or project alternative?
The back analysis does give us the latitude.
Okay. So when you read the factors that FERC said it evaluated, namely the environmental impacts that are specifically articulated, are you saying that the back analysis allows you to consider those things?
One of the criteria for back is environmental impacts.
Okay.
And as it pertains to this, I have never encountered, I've never dealt with a FERC-driven project other than this. I did rely on their assessment.
Okay. So you relied on and took into consideration factors other than just air emissions, is that correct?
I did rely on their assessment, and it was a decision. It was part of my decision not to redefine the project.
Okay. And so as part of that, did you request any documents from Algonquin that would help you to evaluate the statements that are contained in the environmental assessment?
I do not recall.
You do not recall?
I do not recall if there was additional documents supplied.
Okay, but your testimony was that you didn't actually conduct an independent analysis, so you just simply relied on the environmental assessment.
My testimony is I relied on the assessment by the firm.
Okay, so then how is it that you don't recall whether you asked for any additional documents from Algonquin?
Despite relying on the FERC, I always would have had the ability to request additional documentation. I do not recall if I did. I did rely on the FERC's assessment.
Okay, so that if Algonquin gave you any documents, you didn't consider them. Is that fair?
He doesn't recall whether he requested.
Sustained.
Speak into the mic.
Can you please speak into the microphone?
Okay, if we go back to the quoted section of the environmental assessment, the third paragraph, the first sentence of the third paragraph says that the proposed gas-driven compressor units can continue to meet the NACs. You see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Is there anything in the environmental assessment where FERC reached a finding or conclusion with respect to AALs and TELs?
AALs and TELs are a state-only initiative or a state-only requirement. It is not a federal requirement. They did not analyze this to the best of my knowledge.
Okay, and FERC didn't consider them then, is that correct?
They would, I do not know what they considered. If they consider anything beyond here, it is a state-only requirement. I do not know if they considered it in part of their review.
But they didn't reach any conclusion.
There is no statement of conclusion here.
Okay. And is there any statement about the decreased emission of air pollutants that may result from electric compression?
So if I understand your question, is there a statement about lowering air pollution? The first sentence of the third paragraph, while the use of electric-driven compressors would lower operating emissions to proposed gas-driven compressor units can continue to meet the max.
Okay, so there is an acknowledgement by FERC that the electric-driven compressor units would in fact lower operating emissions.
That is their statement.
All right. We look at paragraph 8 of your rebuttal testimony. Do I understand that to be that in deciding to exercise your latitude to redefine the source as part of the back analysis, that you relied on FERC's conclusion that the electric-driven compressor units would not offer a significant environmental advantage over the proposed project facilities?
Could you speak up, please? If you could read the question, I had trouble hearing. Do I understand that in deciding to exercise your latitude to redefine the source as part of the back analysis, that you relied on FERC's conclusion that the electric-driven compressor units would not offer a significant environmental advantage over the proposed project facilities?
Yes, I did.
And you did no further evaluation beyond that?
I did no independent evaluation on these issues. I did realize that FERC made their determination that it was not appropriate to move to require an electric-driven compressor, and on that basis, I did not exercise my latitude to require or redefine the project. In short, it was, or, no, scratch that. You got my answer.
Okay, now if we could go to paragraph 14. And there you say in the last sentence that an unmanned compressor station requires a human presence on a routine basis. You see that?
Yes, I do.
Can you define what you mean by routine?
You can't set these and forget them. You have to have human intervention. This facility will be manned at least certain hours of the day. So this is not an unmanned location.
Okay. And that staffing of the facility will occur whether or not there is an SCR unit installed, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, now if we could go to the next paragraph, paragraph 15. There's a whole lot of questions I was going to ask you about that link that doesn't work, but you're correct with the testimony. Okay, so I think we're all in agreement that the document that you referred to, that you intended to refer to, is the 7th edition of the EPA cross-control manual. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that is Exhibit E to Mr. Goodrich's testimony, correct?
I do not have Exhibit E in front of me.
Okay, well, let's show you some. Okay, here it is. Yes, we have net lots of copies for anybody who. Okay. Turn the whole thing around?
Yeah, there we go. All right, there we go.
Okay, you specifically,
Can I wait till my counsel has
Sure.
a copy?
Everyone get one?
okay,
Is that an extra?
Yes.
sorry, we didn't pass it down.
Thank you.
Okay, if you could, all right, I'm having trouble finding the quote I wanted to ask you about, so, so let's move on to another topic. If he finds it, then I'll come back and ask you about it, all right? If you turn to paragraph 10 of your rebuttal testimony.
firefighter.
And in this part of your testimony, you are rebutting William Power's discussion of selective catalytic reduction as backed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so for the purpose of this question, can we agree to refer to selective catalytic reduction as SCR so I don't stumble over it?
We can agree.
Okay, great, thank you. Can we agree that SCR is feasible for use on the solar Taurus compressor proposed in Weymouth?
It is technically feasible, is my understanding.
And can we also agree that it's available for use on the solar Taurus compressor proposed in Weymouth?
That has been indicated as part of the backed analysis.
Okay. So, can we agree that your disagreement with Mr. Power's concerns whether SCR would be economical for use in Weymouth?
Correct.
Okay. And you state there that MassDEP agrees with Algonquin's case-specific backed analysis. You see that? Last sentence in paragraph 10.
Yes, I do.
Okay. And am I correct that the analysis that Algonquin used is sometimes called top-down backed analysis?
Correct.
And can you tell me what top-down backed analysis is?
It's a procedure outlined in our backed guidance where you identify all control technologies and you rank them in relative control efficiency, and then you assess them in a sequential manner. And in this case, you would be assessing the cost of control of the top case, and if it's determined not to be cost effective, you move on to the second case, in which you do a cost analysis, and you continue down the hierarchy.
Okay. And sometimes applicants, instead of using the top-down back analysis, use something called top case back guidance. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And is it fair to say that top case back guidance is based on data collected on approved air emissions plans that have been approved somewhere else and identifies the lowest emission levels that have been required for any particular type of facility anywhere in the U.S.?
No, sir, that is not correct. The top case determinations are Massachusetts specific. So these are top case determinations made within Massachusetts.
Okay. So is it your position that, is it the department's position that that it's up to the applicant to decide whether to use the top case back guidance or conduct a top-down back analysis?
That is correct.
And do you do anything to evaluate that choice?
The option is available to do a top-down back analysis in lieu of accepting top case. So that is, it's their decision.
Okay. And when you are evaluating the top-down back analysis that an applicant has performed, what, if any, weight do you give to existing top case back guidance?
We do look at it. We consider whether it's technically feasible in this situation. And then we would consider the argument that it's top case is not cost effective for their specific situation.
Okay. Okay, going back to paragraph 10. You say that the applicable cost effectiveness range is $11,000 to $13,000 per ton. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And am I correct that that's the same range that is specified in MassDEP's back guide?
That is where the number comes from.
Okay. And that, you've used that range since 1990, is that correct?
Correct.
is there anything in any MassDEP regulation that would prohibit the department from adjusting that range to account for inflation?
There is no regulation prohibiting us. We do periodically look at it. It was reviewed not that long ago.
It was reviewed not that quite that long ago. Tell me about that review.
Well, there was a
Can you be a little
discussion.
more- Can you be a little more specific? Tell me about it, what does that mean?
I have no idea. I'm just learning about this review now, so I'm asking him to explain what he said, what he means when he said it was reviewed not that long ago.
Oh,
There was a internal discussion regarding back and the appropriateness of continuing to use these numbers. I do not have I do not know the dates of these conversations.
And who is involved in these conversations?
In addition to myself, my counterparts in the 3 other regions,
Okay.
and Mr. Keith.
Mr. Keith, okay. So is there anything in the guidance as it's written today that would expressly prohibit adjusting the range to account for inflation?
There is nothing in the guidance.
Okay, if we could now look at paragraph 12. In that paragraph, you quote the NSR manual. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And it says in the first sentence, the baseline emissions rate represents a realistic scenario of upper boundary uncontrolled emissions for the source. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And what is your understanding of the term uncontrolled emissions?
As the unit would emit without any add-on controls or without any additional control technologies.
Okay. All right. Now, one of the basic documents here is the airplanes application. You have to.
I do not have it in front of me.
All right, let's get it.
I have a copy of the application.
Okay.
Is this one, neighbor? This one is January 7th. I have the air dispersion model. Am I using? Is that right?
Sorry, it's a great big fat document. only really going to ask you to look at page 5-3, which is now open to.
Can you identify the document, please?
Is this the revised May 2018 application update?
Yes. Okay, if you would look at page 5-3.
I am there.
Okay. Do you understand that to mean that the representation right in the middle of the page there, that the minimum back NOx emission level of the solar tar is 60 turbine is 25 parts per million?
I'm sorry, where are you reading from?
I'm not reading from it because I gave my copy over there, but in the middle.
Okay, let me read, make sure I get the context.
Yes, okay.
Can you repeat the page?
5-3.
Okay.
So can the question be repeated?
So do you understand that the minimum backed NOx emission level of the solar charged 60 turbine is 25 parts per million?
No, sir, I do not interpret it that way.
Okay, how do you interpret it?
I interpret that 25 parts per million as a federal regulatory limit under the NSPS.
Okay. And the solar charged 60 gets this down to 9 parts per million somehow, right?
Through dry low NOx technology, yes.
Sorry, through
Dry low NOx technology.
Okay. So the dry low NOx technology is a change that was adopted in order to control the turbine's emissions, is that correct?
It's an evolution in design.
And does an evolution mean that it's a change?
Yes.
Okay. And the purpose of this evolution in design is to control the turbine's emissions, is that correct?
Correct.
So perhaps you can help me with one of the stranger results of this analysis. If we started with a turbine that,
Can we wait for that?
yeah, let's wait for the siren to go away. If we started with a turbine that had as its base performance 25 parts per million, and you added SCR to it, you would ultimately end up with an emission rate that is lower than 9 parts per million. Is that correct?
Can't hear you, sir.
Mr. Miyares, can you speak up, please?
Could you read the question again?
So perhaps you can help me with one of the stranger results of this analysis. Oh, actually, then we got interrupted by. So the question is, if we started with a turbine that had as its base performance 25 parts per million, and you add SCR to it, you would ultimately end up with an emission rate that is lower than 9 parts per million. Is that correct?
That does not give me enough to go on to answer your question.
What else would you need to know?
The efficiency of the SCR.
Okay, so the I believe in the testimony subject to check, in Mr. Power's testimony, he suggested that the efficiency was 95%. Is that right?
May I see the document?
I was guessing, so I was hoping you would.
Miyares, is your question regarding what Mr. Powers testified to?
Okay, so if you look at footnote 41 of Mr. Powers' testimony, he suggested, I'm wrong, 92%. It's on page 6.
Page 6.
16, sorry. Page 16.
And which footnote?
41. So let's use 92%.
No